the thing that knocked me out about the Pink Floyd to begin with, when I was a 15-year-old schoolboy, when I first heard them, was how fully formed they were. And that was to do with Syd Barrett, the nature of Syd Barrett's talent as a songwriter. When you heard a Syd Barrett song, it didn't sound like anybody else. It didn't sound like Bob Dylan. Dylan's influence might have been lurking in there, but it didn't sound like a Bob Dylan song. It didn't sound like a Rolling Stones song, or even a Beatles song. It sounded like the Pink Floyd, and that is an extremely impressive thing when someone is just out of their teens and the talent is fully formed. Okay, and that was what was so remarkable about the Pink Floyd to begin with. There aren't that many groups or performers from the very first record. It's fully formed. What they have to offer, it's there. It's all there, and it's theirs. It's not like a sort of, well, it's not a Neil Young wannabe or anything like that. It's Syd Barrett is right there. I think he was a real artist. I think the word artist is chronically overused in the worlds of rock and pop. I think there are a lot of entertainers out there who think they're artists and talk about themselves as artists, but they are deluding themselves sorely. Syd Barrett was an artist. What Syd Barrett did was to create, he opened up his mind so that you could, welcome to my world. Come inside. This is, look at the clutter. This is who I am. It took him 3 records to achieve that, 3 albums. He never came back. All the other so-called LSD impacted casualties of rock came back. Peter Green, Arthur Lee, Brian Wilson, they all came back eventually. Syd never came back. I think he understood what it is to be an artist. And what he gave music, a sense of playfulness, a sense of with dark edges, a kind of buoyancy, a kind of that in the early work that is just technically very limited. Music, as a musician, technically he was very limited, but he was just endlessly inventive. Another not inconsiderable thing that he brought to the party was the fact that he was one of the very first English singers who sang as an Englishman. Everyone else was singing in a kind of mid-Atlantic accent. Everyone else coming from the British Isles. It was him and David Bowie, the Laughing Gnome, God bless him. Otherwise it's Bernard Cribbins singing Right Said Fred. It's like novelty records. There were novelty pop records where people sang in Cockney accents. But that was the only representation of the English accent in pop in the 60s until the likes of Syd Barrett came along and sang. That's why he was fully formed. That's one of the reasons. It was like he wasn't gonna sing like Bo Diddley. He'd steal Bo Diddley's riffs, but he wasn't gonna pretend to be black. He wasn't gonna pretend to be anything but what he was. He wasn't gonna pretend to be working class. What he represented was exactly who he was, a dreamy, middle-class Cambridge mother's boy on acid.
Where do you think that, because he started out with sort of Bo Diddley-esque ish in his very early stages, and then very quickly you get this kind of
it's flowering, it's fruition as well.
Ronald Lane, an English song. It could be a sort of English kind of a satirical song.
Yeah.
It's so different from the bluesy stuff and, you know, the imitation bluesy stuff.
Well, I mean, he was obviously listening also. I mean, he was listening what the Kinks were doing, what the Beatles were doing on Revolver. I mean, he was influenced by all this stuff. At the same time, he just had a natural facility. He really was. I mean, he had a genuine, you know, real creative spirit that was able to, you know, I keep using the term fully formed, but I mean, that is what's so amazing about someone who is just barely out of their teens. Just bang, he had it. He didn't need to spend a lot of time developing it. I mean, when you listen to Barrett's songs, and I don't know if it was the case, but many of them, you just think of him picking up the guitar, strumming a few chords, okay, and then it just starts coming out. There's no editing process. It's like Neil Young has a similar capacity for being able to just pick up a guitar, he's in the right mood, and the whole song comes out. You just have to turn on a tape recorder. At the end of 5 minutes, you've got a finished song. It doesn't have to be written down, it has to be painstakingly edited, as I would kind of imagine Roger Waters' work would be. It was this complete, okay, you know, this open channel is what Syd had. And those that try and copy what he did, or try and adopt his songwriting abilities, don't really have that. It's kind of hard work for them. It was kind of effortless, and you don't get that from Roger Waters' songs. You see, when I hear those songs, I feel that there's a lot of work, a lot of lyrics written down and crossed out, and what's the right word, which is fair enough. Which is one way of doing it. I'm not saying one is better than the other. One is more inspired than the other. You know, they're both totally valid ways of songwriting. But Syd's, facility with just, he's like a bird on a tree, you know. I mean, it's just, the music just comes out of him, and it's a beautiful thing to witness.
I mean, the thing about a bike or Arnold Lane, you're kind of in this kind of world immediately, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's like
well, it's a total sensibility. It's a total. An artist is trying to give you his or her sensibility. When you're writing a book or a film, it's their sensibility that they're projecting to you. That they are trying to hypnotize you. That's what otherwise, why are you going to sit for hours on end holding a book like that? It's an uncomfortable position. Or why are you just going to sit there and listen to music unless you are hypnotized? It's like a Pied Piper situation. And Syd Barrett had that Pied Piper-esque quality. It really, he had the charisma. He had something magical. And it all went horribly wrong for him. But, he's the kind of boy you can't forget. He really is, and he will not be forgotten. And he will be remembered as vividly as the Pink Floyd, even though the Pink Floyd's records sold the Roger Waters era Pink Floyd records sold way, way, way more than Syd Barrett's discography has managed to sell over the years. I'm
going to ask you, do you think Syd was in any way destroyed by the music business? I mean, put into something that his own sensitive nature just...
I don't think it helped him. But I think what would have happened to Syd Barrett, I think what happened to Syd Barrett in his 20s, if he hadn't been in a situation that, with drugs and the music biz, that clearly accelerated things. I mean, I think the same problems would have visited him maybe in his 30s. I think he maybe would have had more time. But that's just supposition. Nobody knows. We're going back to this unsolvable mystery. Nobody. The people that were in the room and saw him behaving erratically, or the people that would go around and talk to everybody and interview them and try and build up a picture, or even the psychiatrist that saw him from time to time. I don't think anybody can tell you what caused the Syd situation. No one can tell you what was going on in his mind. I've read interviews with the sister, who was the closest person to him certainly in the last 30 years of his life. And although she's able to tell you what was going on to a certain extent, I mean, she's as unable as everyone else to decipher what was really going on in his mind. I mean, you read that Rob Chapman book. This is probably the most thorough book that's been written on Barrett to date. Particularly when he deals with the last 30 years, and he has a very good interview with Rosemary Barrett. And you get this awful sense of a man just diminishing into the dimmest corner of life. A man who's so incapable of connecting with any other human being that he's virtually relinquished the ability to speak. I mean, that to me that's shocking and extremely tragic. It would be wonderful to think that in his isolation, he lived there was a kind of whimsical equilibrium that was kind of keeping him going. That he wasn't living with a state of continual inner torment, in other words. But I just don't know if that's true, and I don't think anyone knows if that's true, and that's always the question. What the hell was going on in that man's mind? What was going on?